On October 5th, 1994, a life was stolen, a family lay shattered, and a community fell broken. For 30 years, justice has been patient, and justice does not forget. Today I'm announcing the arrest of Darryl Patrick Goggans for the 1994 murder of Meagan Johns. Meagan was the light in the lives of those who knew her, who came face to face with a man who inevitably and brutally stabbed her to death. To give more information about the case, I'd like to introduce Detective Eric Curtis, who has worked on this case for the past 3 years and who was instrumental in searching for the right company and the right technology to test the evidence that was preserved in this case. Detective Curtis.
Hello. So this happened in October of 1994. Megan's co-workers, she had not shown up for work, so they contacted the apartment complex, asked them to go check on her. And when they did, they found that she was deceased. It was obvious that she had been murdered, and they called the Irving Police Department. The investigation began then. Retired Sergeant Rowan here, he led the investigation back then. A lot of work went into the case, but unfortunately at the time there was no leads that they were able to establish who had committed this murder. Over the years we would look at it as we could, and hoping for some technology where we might be able to get some DNA evidence eventually. I took it over in 3 years ago, and began looking for a company that we could send this DNA that we had for testing, and that's what we did. We were able to get an unknown profile of DNA for the Darryl, eventually led to Darryl Goggans. So he was arrested yesterday, and he's in the Irving jail right now.
Next, I'd like to invite to the podium retired Sergeant Tom Rowan. Tom Rowan worked on this case from 1994 through his retirement in 2016. Was very instrumental in keeping this case going. Sergeant.
This is a great day. These cases that you get assigned stay with you forever. This case was assigned to me in 1994. DNA technology was limited at that time, so we continued looking at the case, kept trying to generate leads. When new technologies came around, we would send things off for testing, but we never could get a DNA profile. I had other detectives look at the case just in case I might have missed something, and it just kept going down the same road of no leads, nothing new. I retired in 2016. I stayed in touch with Detective Curtis. We talk periodically about cold cases still to this day. He told me the great news of getting a profile from new technologies, and that was just a great day. And then he called me yesterday and told me that they have an arrest. And I wish Megan was still here. It's just a great weight lifted off your shoulders, and her dad did not live to see this great day. So anyway, Detective Curtis is one of the top detectives in the Metroplex, and I'm extremely proud of him. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Before we go on, I want to introduce to you two very, very special people. The first is Meagan Johns. Bridget is the sister of Megan. Bridget was 9 years old at the time of this horrible crime. And another person Kelly Chance, who was very, very close to Meagan as well. Meagan was actually Kelly's maid of honor in her wedding. These two people have endured this for the last 30 years, and I want to take an opportunity for them to come talk to you about Meagan.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for being here. I think most importantly, we owe the largest debt of gratitude to the two gentlemen behind us here, Detective Rowan and Detective Curtis, who have fought tirelessly and have shown tremendous courage and diligence in continuing to fight for Meagan. Also to Kelly, who, as one of her dearest friends for the last 30 years, has hounded these two poor gentlemen every September and October, asking what's new, what's going on, what can we do, what have we tried, what haven't we tried, and we all deserve a friend like Kelly. For my part, you know, as Chief said, I was 9 years old when Meagan died, and you know, it was the rest of my life up till this day that I've gone without having my sister here. So as hard as that's been, I also wanted to extend some hope to families that continue to live with the unresolved loss of a loved one, that even after 30 years, 8 months, and 6 days, God's timing can prevail. So I hope you can take some encouragement from that. And thank you again to Detective Curtis and Sergeant Rowan. Kelly?
I just want to say that, you know, almost 31 years, you know, what is it, 30 years, 8 months, 6 days later, we get an arrest. And having her family and friends all waiting, praying for this day to come, says a lot about who Meagan was more than anything. And Meagan was a beautiful person, a beautiful soul, and we've been robbed. And it's time for justice for Meagan, justice for Meagan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we take some questions, I just want to take an opportunity as Chief of Police to first thank the detectives on this case, both then and now. These detectives, their unwavering dedication to this case, their tenacity, their never quit mentality is exemplified every day in their work, and this is an example of that. To our crime scene officers who and property and evidence techs, I'd like to thank them for their skill and their determination and their professionalism and how they carried about their job both then and now that allowed for us to bring this person to justice. And then most importantly, I want to thank the family and friends of Meagan Johns for their courage, their strength, and their trust in us and the detectives, and just thank you very, very much. Now, we'll answer a few questions. I just do need to remind you that we are this is still an active, we've made an arrest, but we're still working some details out so we can answer as many questions as we can, and those that we can't, we'll make sure to get back with you when we can, if we can. Yes, ma'am.
Where was the suspect found, and has he given a confession or talked about a motive or anything like that?
The suspect was found in Lancaster, Texas, and he is being held here in our jail right now. We've yet to really have a conversation with him.
Can we talk about where the DNA is from, where it was obtained from, and was he someone who was questioned early on?
He was spoken to early on in the investigation, and in cases we have to be careful about where the DNA was from. Obviously, it was in the crime scene, located with most of the other evidence. So that's a question we have to be careful with at this juncture. So, but he was spoken to early on.
Was he ever ruled out?
What's that? You want to take that case? The question? Yeah. Come on.
He was spoken to at the time of the offense. We were talking to probably hundreds of people in reference to this. There was nothing that said that he was a suspect at the time, and so we had his information. We checked his where he was from and everything, but he just didn't develop into a person of interest or a suspect at that time. And we didn't, like I said, we didn't have the technologies from DNA back then, so, but we kept it and we kept trying.
How many cold cases are in Irving, and do you think the development of DNA technology will continue to help you guys solve these cases?
We do think the development of DNA will help us clear cases. We've recently reassigned detectives to a cold case squad to look at some of our cold cases. Our detectives have a very high clearance rate for these types of offenses, but unfortunately, we do have cold cases. We have cases that are unsolved, and like this one, they stick with us. So I'd like the public to know, and the residents of Irving to know that these victims are not forgotten. That we still invest in them as technology comes about. We invest in those technologies, and we try to make sure that we bring these justice to these families.
Do you have any numbers for us of how many cases are still cold?
I do not. Ma'am.
Chief, could you go over again the connection between him and Meagan in regards to where they lived and so forth, just for the record?
He was actually Megan's next door neighbor, so he lived right next door to her. So
Any reason to believe that he might be tied to any other potential crimes out there?
it's pretty early on. We just arrested him yesterday. So, but that's something that we'll look at, and if other agencies have a cold case that might match that, we're certainly willing to listen and see if we can help them with that.
How do you keep focused and keep that spirit going when you hit dead ends, and to just keep moving forward in something like this?
It's frustrating. Luckily, I have a great chief, and I had an idea of I wanted to do something different, and talked to him about it, and he supported me. So, because we had run into these dead ends, trying same old thing over and over, and I said I want to try some different testing, some different technology, go outside of the norm, and let's try some private testing. And when I talked to him about it, he completely supported it and never questioned it. Was on board completely. So you got to have good supervision, and he definitely helped us out.
Are you able to say where that the lab was that helped finalize this for you?
Yeah, it's DNA Labs International in Florida.
Detective, did this suspect have any kind of criminal history? What do you know about him? Did he hold a job? What was he doing at that time?
Currently or at that time?
At that time?
I don't know if he was working at that time. I don't know that I can get into his criminal history, so at this point.
If I could follow up on that question, please, with respect to this is emblematic of I used the word earlier, tenacity. Police officers, detectives, they are called to this profession. These guys who are catching these cases, they will work these cases as long and as hard as they humanly possibly can. Sergeant Rowan is an example of that, he caught that case in 1994, worked it until the day he retired, kept in contact with people who are still working here. That's just an example of the mentality that the Irving Police Department has, and how we're trying to bring justice to victims. So.
This question is for loved ones of Meagan. Can you tell us a little bit about her as a friend and as a sister? We would love to just, paint a picture of what she was like. You can both
Sister.
say it.
Well,
Step closer, please.
okay. Megan was beautiful both inside and out. She had a heart of gold. She loved everybody. She didn't have the easiest of lives, but that never got her down. She had a smile that would light a room. She was just one of the kindest people you would ever meet on earth, non-judgmental, loved everybody. If you look at even of some of my past podcasts that, I make a statement repeatedly that I wouldn't even be surprised if this was a stranger, because I can't imagine that anybody that knew her could hurt her, because, she was just such a beautiful soul. And
Your best friend?
she was not. She was one of my friends. I wouldn't say that, we had, she was living in Irving, was starting her career. I was a new nurse and, had small children. And so, there would be months and months that we would go without speaking. But we'd always get back together and, you know, see each other and have our girls' time away and, you know, just have some fun together. And
Why did you never give up?
she was there for me. She was there for me, and she didn't have a voice. Somebody stole her voice. And so I felt like Bridget was only 9 years old, and that I felt like after her father passed away, that somebody needed to be her voice. And so I really took it upon myself to really try and push and push and push, and I know I pushed, and even sometimes would get frustrated, which kind of goes back to one of your questions. You do hit brick wall after brick wall, but I would encourage families out there, don't stop. Just keep going. Eventually, the barrier will remove itself, and some justice will prevail. Thank you.
Kelly, I had a quick question for you.
Okay.
What were you when you got the news that they made an arrest, and what was going through your mind when you got that news?
I had gotten a call previously that they had gotten a usable DNA. And so when my phone rang and I saw that it was the detective, you know, of course I was shaking. But when he told me, I couldn't hear it. I was like, my ears went deaf, and I'm like, what? What? And he had to repeat it a couple of times before I could really process it and realize that, yes, it's happening. It's happening, and we're here. And I'm so grateful, and I'm so thankful to the chief, to the detectives, to the Irving Police Department, and for her family and friends that have encouraged me, because it is brick wall after brick wall, and it is easy to give up. It really is, because you do. Sometimes you feel like you just hit a brick wall, one right after the other. But when you've got people that are encouraging you, and you've got something else to kind of help push you to do that. And I've done a few podcasts. I've had some help with her family doing podcasts. And I think that this whole thing will be liberating, not only for, you know, justice for Meagan, but, you know, there were people out there, even my own friends, that, you know, is like, did they do it? You know, so it should be very liberating for anybody that's ever been held under that cloud to finally know who hurt our friend.
You said she was getting her career started. What was her career she was pursuing?
She had originally thought maybe child development, but she had gotten a nice job at a Smith Barney firm, and she was working as a secretary for them, and she was doing well. The job was well. She had a car. That apartment was the nicest apartment she had ever lived in. You know, we grew up for the most part in Oak Cliff, and it wasn't always the safest area in the 90s. And, you know, this was, you know, she was actually getting somewhere in life, and she moved to a nicer place and closer to work, and, you know, things were looking up for her. And it's just really tragic what happened to her. Thank you.
I guess one question for detectives, my final question really, I guess is just why, you know, you're left with kind of like this idea of obviously being her neighbor, but is there any other understanding at this point of a motive?
No, I don't have a motive right now. I don't know that I'll get one. That would be something he would have to tell us, so we'll see if he wants to tell us that.
It was established early on there was no forced entry.
Last question, guys.
Correct, yes, no forced entry.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.